Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. Let's get straight down to it. It's good to be back. I've had 2 weeks off. I just want to cover the last 2 weeks of boxing. It's been a busy one. First things first, Andrade Williams. 2 weekends ago, credit to Andrade, reviewed the fight, watched the fight live. For the first 4 rounds, he was sublime. And when I mean sublime, I mean pound for pound great. That's how good he was. I've never seen anyone kind of dismantle Liam Williams like that before. A prime Liam Williams. Looked brilliant. And I thought Williams might get stopped, even in the first round. But he hung on. Credit Williams, showed his toughness, got dropped. But came back, didn't he? He came back beautifully in the third round, rocked Andrade, and then Andrade sort of went back into his shell, didn't he? The first 4 rounds, he was showing everything: slick skills, great punching ability, great hand speed, superb uppercut. Whenever Williams tried to put it on him in the inside, slipped and hit the uppercut, and it was a thing of beauty. And I was sitting there thinking, this guy is the real deal. He's far better than I thought he was, but the flaws came back. This is why Andrade is not a pay-per-view star, because what happened, he gassed out. I'm not sure if he can make that middleweight weight anymore. He's a big guy for middleweight, and you could see him physically wilt. Williams, unfortunately, didn't quite have the skill or the know-how to get inside, and he couldn't quite put it on Andrade. And obviously Andrade, very experienced, whenever Williams got in close, held him, grabbed him, and then very smartly, what he did was a pattern. It was kind of rinse and repeat. Held him. Referee was poor. He should have warned Andrade at least once, deducted 1 point. That would have soon stopped it, but he didn't. So Andrade kept doing it, held him, and as soon as a break, he'd get off 4 or 5 punches very quickly. And I'm surprised Williams didn't really adapt or change that. Also, he didn't really have much of an answer to Andrade's uppercut in the inside, which obviously shook him a few times. But listen, Williams was tough. What a warrior. Kept coming. Just didn't have the punch power, which I thought he would have, to really worry Andrade. But unlike in the Fox fight, where Fox let Williams back him up on the ropes and unleash, Andrade never let that happen. But Williams was game. He was tough. He put it on Andrade, but it was just a bit too skillful and a bit too experienced for Williams, who was a little bit predictable. He needed to show Andrade a little bit more. Needed to vary his jab, needed to find different ways of getting into the inside, and he needed to take a few more risks, throw a few haymakers, really try and put it on Andrade, to really hurt him, because the pressure was that he didn't like the relentless pressure from Williams, but Williams couldn't get off enough. He couldn't stop Andrade from holding him, basically manhandling him on the inside, grabbing him, and the referee was poor. But so it was a mixed bag. You can see the good and the bad from Andrade, and you can see why ultimately he's not a pay-per-view star, because he turned it into an ugly, boring fight where it was just sort of grab and hold, even worse than a Klitschko at many times after 4 rounds. His stamina is a big issue, and I just don't think he beats the elite. I don't think he beats Charlo. I don't think he'd have beaten Billy Joe, and he certainly wouldn't get anywhere near Canelo. Styles make fights, of course they do, but it's just his gas engine, and I'm not sure how committed and dedicated he is to training. He's very, very naturally gifted, and sometimes that doesn't always lend itself to being the hardest worker. But just a bit too good, like I say, and hand speed. Beautiful hand speed, like really, really quick. Far quicker than I thought he would be in the early rounds. And like I said, the first 4 rounds, he would have kept that up for 12. Not only would he have stopped Williams, but he'd be up there as like the pound per pound top 5. But of course, he gassed out. Williams, credit, tough as nails. But he's got to go back to drawing board. He's got to find ways of breaking down these guys that are slick, quick and experienced. He's got to have different ways of getting in, like Canelo has. Different punch variety. Also, he's got to work on his defence a bit more. More head movement, tighter guard. He's got to get better footwork as well. But Williams could be champion, there's no question. But I don't think he's going to beat the elite in Charlo or Andrade. They're the two that, ultimately hold the belts. So he's just got to go back, rebuild, and maybe in 18 months come again at world title. But he needs a couple of fights, needs improvements, but he's still young enough, and he's one tough cookie, and he deserves all the respect in the world. So does Dominic Ingle. They came to win, they were game, they just weren't quite good enough or experienced enough for Andrade, who will move on. I want to see him in unification against Charlo. I want to see him in the big fights of the winner of Canelo, Billy Joe. It's going to be very interesting, but I just don't know if he's got the gas engine or the punch power to hold off a Charlo or a Canelo who bang far harder than Williams, and are smarter, got more know-how to unlock the key of an Andrade. Williams couldn't do that, and I think Billy Joe just outboxes him. I think Billy Joe for the full 12 rounds. First couple of rounds, I would expect Andrade to be up. But then I think Billy Joe just susses him out and just ultimately takes over. And it's a different fight. He's not going to get away with grabbing and holding Billy Joe. He'll be far too slick himself. So I don't think Andrade will beat the best of the best. I don't think he'll become unified champion. But I tell you what, if he stays away from the champions, he's going to be tough to beat for the up-and-coming challengers. He's a very smart fighter. He knows how to win. Yes, he wins ugly. He didn't start ugly, though. And I tell you what, he can get a lot of fighters out there early if he starts like that. But ultimately, the gas engine is a problem, and the big problem for Williams was the skill level. So Andrade marches on. Credit Williams. I had it 8-4 Andrade. Williams had a beautiful round 3 and a beautiful round 9. But besides that, he didn't really look like he was going to get near Andrade in the fact of like hurting him or stopping him. And ultimately Andrade fought the fight on his pace and his terms, certainly after round 4. Brave effort from Williams. Round 3 was brilliant. He caught Andrade. You could see Andrade didn't like it when he put him on him. He just couldn't put it on him enough.